Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 17, entitled The Lord Travels to Vrindavan, from Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mutt, coming to you from Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mutt, West London. So we're on verse number, chapter 7, Madhya Lila 17, and verse number, text number 175.
175.
Yeah. Okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Jai Hari 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 Bol. Jai Gurudev. So, a brief recap of the context. Mahaprabhu has arrived in Mathura. He has met the Sanodiya Brahman at a temple visit. And Sanodiya Brahman, one of the famous Brahmins, with a person who's addressed as such and such a Brahmin in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. For instance, you get the Avanti Brahman, the famous verse that Mahaprabhu sings after taking sannyas. The verse of the Avanti Brahman: I will conquer over the ocean of material existence with firm attachment to the lotus feet of Mukunda. And then you get the Maharashtrian Brahman, whose little pastime with Mahaprabhu we've just covered in Varanasi. He will feature again on Mahaprabhu's return journey when he stops for longer in Varanasi. And now we have the Sanodiya Brahman, whom Mahaprabhu meets by chance in the temple, recognizes his ecstatic behavior, his ecstatic symptoms, and when the Sanodiya Brahman tells him, I am a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, Mahaprabhu goes, aha, that makes sense, now I understand the source of your ecstasy. And as we'll find out, the Sanodiya Brahman, they are Brahmins for a particular type of community, which is not a high-class community. And due to their involvement, offering their services, Brahminical, ritualistic, samskar services to this community, they're not considered to be pure Brahmins in the sense that normally Mahaprabhu wouldn't accept such a Brahmin to cook his food for him, generally. But as we'll see, Mahaprabhu makes an exception due to this particular Brahmin's connection with Madhavendra Puri. Tabe vipra prabhurilana ailani jagare apana ichaya prabhura nana sevakare. The Brahmana then took Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his home and out of his own free will began to serve the Lord in various ways. Bhikshalage bhattacharye karaila randana tabe mahaprabhu hase balila vachana. He then asked Balabhadra Bhattacharya to cook Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lunch. At that time, the Lord, smiling, spoke as follows: Puri Goshani Tomaragare Karya Chena Bhiksha More Tumi Bhiksha Deha E More Shiksha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Madhavendra Puri has already taken lunch at your place. Therefore, you may cook and give me the food. That is my instruction. Yad yad acharati shrestас tad tad ivetaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokas tad anuvartate. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by his exemplary acts, the whole world pursues. Of course, those of us in the Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Math know another famous instance in which this verse was applied, and that was the meeting of Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Rakshak, Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, with none other than his Gurudev Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. And when Guru Maharaj, after some preliminary involvement with the Gaudiya Math, decided that he was going to come and surrender and join full-time, surrender his life, dedicate his life to the mission of Saraswati Thakur. He came and he bowed down, and Saraswati Thakur uttered this verse: Yad yad acharati shrestас tad tad ivetaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokas tad anuvartate. In other words, revealing, giving his opinion that a person of the caliber of Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, his involvement in the Gaudiya Math is the joining of a great person, and it's an auspicious sign which will cause other people to follow, such as if such a high class person, such a qualified person, the caliber of Guru Maharaj, is joining the Math, then other people can do the same. So Saraswati Thakur was very happy, and he quoted this verse. So Mahaprabhu is quoting it in the context of his own Param Gurudev, Madhavendra Puri. If he is accepting lunch at the house of this Sanodiya Brahmana, then Mahaprabhu himself will do so. So the great person in this regard, in this instance, is Madhavendra Puri, and Mahaprabhu is saying, I am going to follow him. Yadyapi Sanodiya haya saita brahmana Sanodiya gare sanyasina kare bhojana. The Brahmana belonged to the Sanodiya Brahmana community, and a sannyasi does not accept food from such a Brahmana. And in the purport, Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada explains a bit about the social position of the Sanodiyas. We can read a little bit. In northwestern India, Vaishyas are divided in various subdivisions. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur points out that they're divided as Agarayala, Kalauyara, and Sanoyada. Out of them, the Agarauyalas are supposed to be first-class Vaishyas. The Kalauyaras and the Sanoyadas are considered lower due to their occupational degradation. The Kalauyaras generally take wine and other intoxicants. Although they're Vaishyas, they're considered to belong to a lower class. The priests who guide the Kalauyaras and the Sanoyadas are called Sanodiya Brahmanas. So we skipped a bit. They are therefore considered to be lower class Brahmanas, and a sannyasi is not allowed to take alms or food from them. However, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted lunch cooked by a Sanodiya Brahmana simply because he belonged to Madhavendra Puri's community. Srila Madhavendra Puri was the spiritual master of Ishwara Puri, who was the spiritual master of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thus, a spiritual relationship is established on the spiritual platform without consideration of material inferiority or superiority. Spiritual considerations overriding social considerations. Tatapi puri dekitanra vaishnava achara shishyakare tanra bhiksha kaila angikara. Although the Brahmana belonged to the Sanodiya community, Srila Madhavendra Puri saw that he behaved like a Vaishnav and therefore accepted him as his disciple. The food he cooked was also accepted by Madhavendra Puri. So Madhavendra Puri is respecting the status of a Vaishnav as more important than that of a Brahmana. And we can see the tactics, strategy used by Saraswati Thakur in establishing such a superlative position of the Vaishnava over all other social designations. Mahaprabhu Tanreyadi Bhiksha Magila Dainyakari Se Vipra Kahite Lagila. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu willingly requested food from the Brahmana, and the Brahmana, feeling a natural humility, began to speak as follows. Tomare Bhikshadiba Bada Bhagya Se Amara Tumi Ishwara Nahi Tomara Vidhi Vyavahara. It is a great fortune for me to offer you food. You are the Supreme Lord, and being in the transcendental position, you are not restricted in any way. Murka Loka Karibeka Tomara Nindana Sahite Sa Parimu Se Dushte Ravajana. Foolish people will blaspheme you, but I shall not tolerate the words of such mischievous people. Prabhu kahe shruti smriti yata rishigana sabe ekamatana he bina bina dharma. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, the Vedas, Puranas, and great learned sages are not always in agreement with one another. Consequently, there are different religious principles. Dharma stapana hetu sarura vyavahara puri goshanira yeya charana se dharma sara. A devotee's behavior establishes the true purpose of religious principles. The behavior of Madhavendra Puri Goswami is the essence of such religious principles. So Mahaprabhu has made the important philosophical point that the opinion in the instance of a dilemma, contradiction, or needing to make a choice between the Bhagavat, a book, the Shastra on one hand, and a devotee on the other, then one should always side with the instructions of the devotee, because we hear that there are two Bhagavats. There is a book Bhagavat, and then there is the living person Bhagavat, the sadhu. And the sadhu's life is cultured, based on the book Bhagavat, and they are living the culture of the book, of the Shastra. But because they are living, they are able to produce new revelation, new insight, deeper meaning, deeper import. And they're able to harmonize according to time, to place, and to circumstance. So, due to these additional qualities, the person Bhagavat is considered superior to the book Bhagavat. And thus, although certain acharyas may appear to technically differ with shastric injunctions, and persons who are obsessed with technical accuracy, technical correctness, and they may even couch it as fidelity to Shastra, they cannot digest such innovation. And we see this in the case of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, where he is innovating. And we can note how such innovations facilitate Mahaprabhu's prediction of spreading Krishna consciousness all around the world. Prativiti yachiyata nagar digram sarvatra prachara hai bimoranam. This is fulfilled by the vision of Thakur Bhakti Vinod and the expediting done by Saraswati Thakur. If it wasn't for his innovations, this may never have happened. But some can't understand that. like, oh, he's differing from the Shastra, he's differing from the practices set by the Goswamis or whatever. The Shastra given by them. But the deeper vision is that the pure devotee, as an acharya, can make modifications that may superficially seem at odds with the Shastra, the texts of yore. But as the living Bhagavat, they are in a position higher, in fact, than the book Bhagavat. And thus, any modification or innovation will be seen ultimately to serve a positive and glorious purpose. Tarako pratishta shrutayo vibina nasavrishi yasya matam nabinam dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajano yena gatha sapantah. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, dry arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which religious principles are understood. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. Consequently, as the Shastras confirm, one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajans advocate. There we go. Pantaha, the pure, unadulterated path. And that verse is spoken by Maharaj Yudhisthira in the Mahabharata, Vanaparva. So says the purport of Srila Prabhupada. Tabe se vipra prabhuke bhikshakaraila madhupurera loka sabha prabhuke dekiti aila. After this discussion, the Brahmana gave lunch to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then all the people residing in Mathura came to see the Lord. Laksha Shankya Loka Aise Nahika Ganana Bahira Hana Prabhu Dila Darashana. People came by hundreds and thousands, and no one could count them. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came out of the house to give audience to the people.
Prabhu, when it says in hundreds of thousands and millions of people, I mean, do we accept that as literally hundreds of thousands of millions of people?
Generally, yes.
There's a lot of people in India. Easy.
Even 500 years ago. There was a lot less, but there was still a lot. Yeah. Yes, generally it's accepted literally. Modern academics will say that the Chaitanya Charitamrita is something of a hagiographic work. Hagiography. Which is hagiography is a historical work that's considered half fact, half fiction. Fiction in the sense that there is generally it's a religious work where the dates and the places and the scenario, the acts, the activities are considered factual, but certain incidents have been exaggerated and overblown.
Dramatized.
Dramatic license.
Hagiography.
Any examples of that?
A mix of history and fiction.
Any examples you think of like that?
Of books like that?
Well, yeah, examples like that. You mean Chaitanya?
In the Chaitanya Charitamrita?
Yeah.
Well, the various miraculous deeds of Mahaprabhu given in the Chaitanya Charitamrita would be considered by modern materialistic academics as hagiographical, exaggerated, made up.
I think he's mentioned Oxford English Dictionary as a 15th century Indian saint.
Oh, definitely, yeah. So, for instance, Mahaprabhu's embracing Vasudeva Vipra. His body was leprosy ridden. and Mahaprabhu's embracing him and suddenly curing him, that would be considered a mythological act. Or Mahaprabhu's revealing himself as Sadbhuj, or Radha Krishna combined to Ramananda, Sadbhuj to, as we spoke yesterday, to Sarvabhauma. All of those, there's many miraculous deeds listed, so they would be considered hagiographical. So back to the point of hundreds and thousands of people, Guru Maharaj actually, sorry?
Is that like is that like the miracles of Jesus in the Bible, like 5,000?
If historians looked at them, they'd say, Sermon on the Mount. How many people were there?
So looked at by sort of mundane scholars, they say, oh, this is half history and half legends. But we accept it as real.
Yes, absolutely. The vision of a person with faith transcends the domain of the rational mind. The rational brain cannot enter the world of faith, where Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So
He knows.
Param Gurudev says that the world of faith is a substance, and the cultivation of faith creates a bridge between the material world and the spiritual world. It's based on faith. Faith is an actual substance that creates a connection. It's based on faith. Faith is an unseen element, but it's very real nonetheless. And with the cultivation of faith, then the spiritual substance is manifest, can be seen and experienced. Whereas the rational, scientific, academic position or inquiry, it cannot see that, cannot taste or experience it. So for some, they may say, oh, it's hagiographical. But for those who have faith, who have created a connection with the spiritual substance, for them, they can see it as very real. So a different vision, different depth of vision opens up.
I like that.
Faith is very underrated, even by many devotees. Of course, it's given as the primary step and the 9-step gradation of bhakti, the development of bhakti: Shraddha, Sadhusanga, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivriti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Ashakti, Bhava and Prem. The 9 steps given by Rupa Goswami in the development of bhakti. So Shraddha is the first one. It's the very foundation of all the rest. Without Shraddha, you cannot progress to the next step, not to speak of the topmost step. But nonetheless, Shraddha gives a connection. The spiritual reality reveals itself according to the depth of one's Shraddha. And things that are seemingly fantastical or hagiographical to the scientific man are very real, are actually real to the devotee with faith. And it will always be like that, but particularly in Kali Yuga, where people tend towards a lesser intellect, lesser piety, and greater blindness or reduced depth of vision. So their vision is restrained, contained inside the so-called what they can see with the senses. And if it cannot be perceived with the senses, or with something that enhances the function of the senses, such as a telescope or a microscope, then it's not considered real. So that's the default position in Kali Yuga. And it's considered rational. It's considered growing up, mature, right? The modern, the point that an evolved man has reached. So,
Sorry.
yes.
I'd say, can I say how I would maybe try and see what you just said? If a blind man can't see something, it doesn't mean to say it's not there. Would that sum it up?
Yes. Yeah, that's the basic. That's correct. That fits. Just because someone cannot perceive it with the senses does not mean doesn't exist. It's just beyond the realm of their perception. But for a devotee with faith, it can be seen. If a person has faith, then the spiritual substance is revealed accordingly. But back to your point, Devananda Prabhu, about should we take it literally that hundreds and thousands of people came to see Mahaprabhu? Guru Maharaj actually talks about this. Param Gurudev Sridhar Maharaj, he talks about this when, in regard to Mahaprabhu's, in the previous chapter or the one before, the Lord's attempt, it's in the previous book, the Lord's attempt, I believe it's titled The Lord's Attempt to Travel to Vrindavan, where he meets Rupa Goswami. The immediate preceding chapter to this one. And he is going to Kulia, actually, where now our mart is Aparat Banjanarapad. He's going from the house of Vidya Vachaspati, and he's going across the Ganga to the house of Madhav Mishra. And there's a description that the Ganga is filled. The Ganga looks like it's been filled in with human heads. Thousands of them following Mahaprabhu across the river. Thousands and thousands of people. There's a sea of heads in the Ganga. And Param Gurudev is saying that initially he thought this was maybe a little bit of hyperbole. There's some exaggeration there. A bit of poetic license. It's been applied. But when, as a young man, he saw Gandhi was touring India to rouse support for his political objectives. And Param Gurudev noted the sheer number of people following Gandhi, a sea of people, thousands and thousands. And he realized that if that's what was occurring with Gandhi, that number of feet, an ocean, a sea of people following him, then sure, it's very real. And when we say real, we see it's literally occurred with Mahaprabhu as well. And that changed his perspective. So yes, literally hundreds and thousands of people following Mahaprabhu around. And we see this is repeated again and again. Mahaprabhu is having to take special measures to avoid the crowds. He's so popular that he's having to hide sometimes from the crowds or sneak away. We heard in our puppet show the other day, Mahaprabhu consulted with Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy, and he said, I have to sneak away. It's like the beginning of this chapter, actually. I have to sneak away. And if anyone tries to follow me, stop them. Because on his previous attempt to go to Vrindavan, there were too many people with him. Thousands of people. It was a huge, you could say, unmanageable number of people. So, yes, for sure. It's literally, these are literal, say, literally true. Bahu tuli bale prabhu hari boladvani preme mata nache loka kari haridvani. When the people assembled, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu raised his arms and said very loudly, Hari Bol! And the people responded to the Lord, became ecstatic. As if mad, they began to dance and vibrate the transcendental sound. Hari, Hari! Yamunara chabi sagate prabhu kaila snana se vipra prabhu ke dekaya tirthastana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bathed in 24 ghats along the banks of the Yamuna, and the Brahmana showed him all the places of pilgrimage. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada lists the 24 ghats. Svayambhu Vishramadirgha Vishnu Bhuteshwara Mahavidya Gokarnadi Dekila Vistara. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the holy places on the banks of the Yamuna, according to Svayam, including Svayambhu, Vishramagat, Dirgagat, Bhuteshwara, Mahavidya, and Gokarna. Vana Deki Bari Yari Prabhu Ramana Haila Seta Brahmane Prabhu Sangete Laila. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to see the various forests of Vrindavan, he took the Brahmana with him. Madhuvana Tala Kumuda Bahula Vanagela Tahan Tahan Snanakari Prema Vista Haila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the different forests, including Madhuvan, Talavan, Kamudavan, and Bahulavan. Wherever he went, he took his bath with great ecstatic love. Pate Gabi Gata Chare Prabhure Dikya Prabhu Ke Bidaya Ashi Hunkara Kariya. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed through Vrindavan, herds of grazing cows saw him pass, and immediately surrounding him began to move very loudly. Gabi Deki Stabda Prabhu Premera Tarange Vatsalye Gabi Prabhu Rachate Saba Ange. Seeing the herds approach, the Lord was stunned with ecstatic love. The cows then began to lick his body in great affection. So we see, and we'll see further descriptions of this as the chapter continues, of Mahaprabhu's roaming around Vrindavan and the entire Vrindavan environment responding to the presence of Mahaprabhu in ecstatic love, even the trees oozing sap and the twigs standing erect and the peacocks dancing, the cows surrounding him, mooing him, licking him. Kind of a ridiculously kind of rasa soaked scene, like saturated in love and Madhura ras. Vrindavan is, say, coming alive by the presence of Mahaprabhu. Not that Vrindavan is not alive, but when Krishna, Mahaprabhu being Krishna, his presence in Vrindavan is causing the spiritual substance of Vrindavan to exude its natural Madhura ras. You were going to say something?
I was thinking about the lions and the tigers and the wild dangerous animals, but that was in South India, wasn't it?
No, that was just prior to this, when Mahaprabhu was going through the forest, the province called Jharkhand. Part of that forest is still there. It's not as dense or as it doesn't span as much area as it previously did. And of course, there's no tigers in that area anymore. But even just 120, 30 years ago, there were tigers all around that area. But you look at the range of the tiger now, and it's shrunken dramatically, very rapidly over the last few centuries.
British took care of that.
Probably, yeah. British have a lot to answer for in that regard, I imagine. So, the entirety of Vrindavan is just oozing this loving, expressing this affection, this Madhura ras. Shushtahana Prabhu Kare Anga Kanduyana Prabhu Sange Chale Nahi Chare Denugana. Becoming pacified, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to caress the cows. Being unable to give up his company, they went with him. So he's being followed by a herd of very affectionate cows around Vrindavan, licking him and mooing as he moves around Vrindavan. Kashte Shristye Denu Saba Rakila Goyala Prabhu Kanta Dvani Shuni Aishi Mrigi Pala. So the deer must come in now, because Mriga is a deer. It was with great difficulty that the cowherd men were able to keep the cows back. So they're trying to restrain their cows. from following Mahaprabhu in an ecstatic trance. Both Mahaprabhu and the cows, I imagine. Then when the Lord chanted, all the deer heard his sweet voice and approached him. Mriga mrigi mukha deki prabhu angachate baya nahi kare sange yaya vate vate. When the does and the bucks came and saw the Lord's face, they began to lick his body. Not being at all afraid of him, they accompanied him along the path. So now there's deer and cows following him. Shuka pika bring up Prabhu de deke panchamagaya Sikhigana nrityakari Prabhu ageyaya. Bumblebees and birds like the parrots and the cuckoo all began to sing loudly on the 5th note, and the peacocks began to dance in front of the Lord. Prabhu deke brindavanera brikshalata gane ankura pulaka madhu ashru varisane. Upon seeing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the trees and the creepers of Vrindavan became jubilant. Their twigs stood up and they began to shed tears of ecstasy in the form of honey. Pula pala paridala pare prabhupaya bandhu dekki bandhuyena betalana yaya. The trees and creepers, overloaded with fruits and flowers, fell down at the lotus feet of the Lord and greeted him with various presentations as if they were friends. Prabhu deke brindavanera stavara jangama anandita bandhuyena deki bandhugana. Thus, all the moving and non-moving living entities of Vrindavan became very jubilant to see the Lord. It was as if friends were made happy by seeing another friend. Tasabara priti deki prabhu bhavaveshe sabasane krida kare hana taraveshe. Seeing their affection, the Lord was moved by ecstatic love. He began to sport with them, exactly as a friend sports with another friend. Thus, he voluntarily came under the control of his friends. Okay, we can finish there. It's a very beautiful description of the Lord's entry into Vrindavan.
Is that the place you go for 3 days?
3 days and 3 nights.
No, not necessarily.
That's Navadip.
Oh, that's not.
3 days to Navadip.
Sorry?
Go for 3 days and 3 nights to Vrindavan or Navadip.
Yes.
There's no...
There's not a
Well, you can go for 3 days if you want, but that would be your choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
If you want to. Or you can go for 30 days as well.
That's minimum though. It's meant to be minimum.
I stayed more than 3 days and 3 nights in Vrindavan, yeah.
The general instruction...
That was a different one, like one occasion where I spent, because I'm hearing about these 3 days and 3 nights, and another story. Yesterday, we don't want to go there now, we've been there.
Yes, I was listening from the Prasadam hall.
But that was yesterday. Now I said I'm listening. I want to listen to the beautiful. I'm glad I'm sorry I'm late, but I had a little difficulty this morning, and I'm glad I came in at that moment when you were talking about the beautiful pastimes of Mahaprabhu
in Vrindavan.
Very sweet and very, very beautiful. It can bring me to tears if I allow it.
Well, that's okay. We will attribute that as ecstatic symptoms.
Beautiful.
The 3 days and 3 nights is normally an injunction for sannyasis, traditionally, not to stay in one place longer than 3 days and 3 nights. But it's not applied to Vrindavan.
No, it not applied, and probably didn't apply to me in my position. It was all very sort of, everything was so extraordinary, that sort of rung a bell. And when I was asked, what I'm doing, I thought, well, tomorrow I try to spend 3 days and 3 nights because it's such a holy place. purification was why, I'm thinking 3 days and 3 nights.
Was that
then I'll go. I'll take myself away.
is that the injunction? You're supposed to stay
then I went to Rendon.
at
I
least
thought
3
I was
days and 2 nights.
better off to 3 days and 3 nights at not where I wanted, and it was very special for me. It was extraordinary. It was all, more than I dreamed of, more than I'd asked. Well, I didn't ask, more than I asked. So it was very wonderful. Anyway, I don't want to go. It's not my time to say anything. I'm listening to your very beautiful readings.
Well, if you feel the urge to add commentary, then you're more than welcome to.
Well, I've said, I don't, yesterday I spoke, today I want to listen to you. It's time now anyway, time, isn't it?
It's time to read from Revealed Truth.
Revealed Truth, which is...
Revealed Truth by Srila Bhakti Sundar Govindadeva Swami Maharaj. We have to find the correct subchapter because whoever put this bookmark in, what we're going to do is we're going to go skip ahead a little bit. Shankaracharya's philosophy is no doubt very prominent in India. Still today, 40% of people in India follow Shankaracharya. That is so, however, only because it is Krishna's desire. Muktim dadati karhichit smana bhakti yogam. Krishna is always eager to give liberation to the jiva souls. If anyone approaches him through the proper channel, he will easily grant them liberation. It's no problem for him. But for Krishna to give conditioned souls devotion is very heavy for him. So one of the qualities of bhakti, one of the intrinsic qualities of bhakti, is that it's very difficult to achieve. It's difficult to achieve. And it makes liberation, which is known as mukti or moksha, seem insignificant. Which makes sense if it's very difficult to achieve. And Krishna gives mukti easily. Naturally, devotion is of a superior quality, superior status. Through devotion, Krishna's heart can be captured, and he can be bound by love and affection to his devotee. Aham bhakta, the verse, Aham bhakta paradino hyasvatantra ivadvija sarubhiyagrasta hridayo bhaktir bhakta janapriyaha.
Translation?
That although the Lord is svatantra, independent, and he's not obliged to anybody, he's impartial, not under anyone's control, still, from that position of absolute independence, the love of the devotee brings him under control. Jnane prayasamudapasya namanta eva. That's another sloka. Jivanti sanmukaritam bhavadiyavartam. It's another one from the Bhagavatam. There's many verses that describe how the love of the devotee brings the Lord under control, even though the Lord is by nature beyond anyone's control. No one can control the Supreme. But love, isn't it interesting? The love of the devotee controls the Supreme. And thus it's illustrative of the supremacy of bhakti over all other systems of spirituality. Bhakti is of the heart, is absolutely superlative. Krishna is not foolish, and he does not always want to grant everyone devotion. When Krishna wanted to hide the practice of bhakti yoga from insincere souls, he told Lord Shiva, "Go and preach Mayavad. Mayavadam asach chastram prashanam buddham uchyate mayaiva vihitam devi kalo brahmana murtina." Padma Purana, Uttarakhanda 25:7. Then Lord Shiva told Durga Devi, "In the age of Kali, I will take the form of a Brahmana, Shankaracharya, and explain the Vedas in an atheistic way, similar to Buddhism, to cover and hide the Lord's position." Jai Srila Gurudev ki jai.
All very clear.
Hari Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama Hari Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopala Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunatha Jai Koshai Kore Charana Bandhana Jaha Hoite Vignana Savista Puran Jai Koshai Anumuni Tanra Dasa Tan Savara Padare Mura Panchagrasa Mura Mura Panchagrasa Tandera Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivasa Janame Janame Mura Hai Abhilasa Jai Koshai Jabe Braje Koilobasa Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Gorila Prakasha Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavana Shri Guru Vaishnav Hare Manjai Amana Shri Guru Vaishnav Pada Padma Kori Asha Harinam Sankirtan Kori Narottama Dasa Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Rama Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Sundar Radha Giridhari Ji ki jai. Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmalacharya Maharaj ki jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Varya Asto Tarasata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Guru Dev ki jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Varya Asto Tarasata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Shri Dev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Varya Asto Tarasata Shri Srimad Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Rupanuga Guru Varg ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Vishva Varanya Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveda Vaishnav Mandala ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat West London ki jai. Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Nitai Go Premanandi Hari 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 Bo Hari Bo.
I want to know what that
Hare Krishna Hare Kibu.
Excuse me,
Yes.
can you tell me what that blue thing is? That stone in there?
She wants to play with
The
it.
blue thing. What
Wants
blue
to have
thing?
it out of the,
Yeah, the little baby in the cradle.
You mean Giriraj?